You hear that, Samson? Beautiful.
Getting started with supplies, you're gonna need a 1/4 yard for your outer layer, and I recommend a tightly woven fabric like canvas, denim, or twill. Pretty much any non-stretch fabric will work just fine. You'll also need a 1/4 yard of lining, and this can be a thinner, softer material, but also non-stretch. Extra wide double fold bias tape. You can also make this yourself or just buy it pre-made. 1/8 inch braided elastic, and if you're buying it off a roll, you'll need about 24 inches. A PM2.5 filter, and this is going to go in the mask at the end. And lastly, your pattern, and this pattern is available at properfitclothing.com. They're super easy to use. All you have to do is print it, cut it, and you're ready to go. And everything will be linked down in the description, from the supplies to the pattern. After cutting, you need 1 or 2 front main panels, depending how thick you want to make it. For the video, we're just going to be using 1 front panel. You'll need 2 front bottoms, 1 for the lining and 1 for the main outer layer. 2 lining side panels. And 1 center lining panel. Moving on to construction, grab your center lining panel, mark the hemlines indicated on the pattern, and also do the same for the side lining panels. We're going to hem the edges by rolling the side over, pinning it down, and stitch it along that edge. You're going to want to repeat this process for the other side and also the lining side panels. And make sure to only hem the inside edge of the lining side panels. This will be indicated on the pattern. Now we're going to sew the top dart, so go ahead and fold the right sides together and stitch just along that diagonal edge as close as you can to the edge. And you're going to want to snip that bottom point to make it more flush. Next, we're going to take the lining side panels and attach them to the center lining panel. Mark the attachment points that are labeled on the pattern, and make sure the top is lined up with the top and the bottom is lined up with the bottom. We're going to attach only the bottom first, so go ahead and place the lining side panel under the center lining panel. And once you have them lined up, go ahead and do a small tack stitch where the panels overlap. And you'll want to repeat this for the other side, but not the top yet. Next, we're going to be attaching the bottom lining, so go ahead and line up those notch points and pin it on. And I recommend pinning this layer on so that way it stays nice and centered. And once you have it pinned on, go ahead and sew along that edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now that the bottom lining panel is attached, you can go ahead and attach the side panels to the center panel on the top, and just like the bottoms, you're going to want to do a little tack stitch on both sides. And this is going to complete the lining. Now grab your front main outer layer, and we're going to do the dart on the top just like we did the lining. Stitch as close as you can to the edge and snip the point. Grab the other bottom panel that is cut out of your outer layer, and just like the lining, we're going to line up the notches, pin it together, and sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance along that edge. Next, we're going to take the outer layer and the lining, and we're going to place that lining on the inside of the outer layer with the wrong sides together. And you're going to want to line up the bottom center notches, the sides, and also the dart at the top. And once you have it lined up, you can pin these layers together. And when you have them pinned together, we're going to be adding on the bias tape on both the top and bottom edges. And there's a few different ways you can add the bias tape. You can either buy the pre-made or make it yourself. If you're using the pre-made, you're going to want to lay it over the edge all the way past the outside edge and go over both the top and bottom. I recommend pinning this on and stitching as close as you can to the inside edge. You can also use a bias tape maker. This will allow you to make bias tape in multiple sizes and out of any fabric you want. It also comes with a presser foot guide, making it easy to sew onto your edge. And all you do is cut your bias tape strips to the size of the folder you choose. Feed the strips through the folder and iron it as it comes out the other end, and you'll end up with the same style of double fold bias tape as you can buy at the store. And we will post links to all the different methods of bias tape in the description below. And the reason we're using the bias tape is to seal off those raw edges on the top and the bottom. And as you're sewing on your bias tape, you're going to want to slide in your bendy strip in the center of that top edge over that dart. This strip is cut at 3 inches, and a twisty tie works just the same. You just want something that will bend and form around your nose. And the third method is using a double fold bias tape binder. This will fold your strip as you sew it on. Once you get close to the center, go ahead and slide that bendy strip or twisty tie as close as you can to the outside edge, and then keep sewing right on over it all the way through past the other end. And then go ahead and flip it around and add bias tape to the bottom edge, and I recommend using any form of bias tape that works best for you. All of these methods are going to work just fine. And it's key to add this bendy portion in as you're adding on that bias tape. It just makes it easier in the long run. And I highly recommend using a twisty tie. Most people have these laying around the house. It's going to work the exact same as the strip I used in the video. Next, we're going to seal off the raw edges on both of the sides, and we're going to use a serger to do this. And if you don't have a serger, it's not a big deal. You can totally use a zigzag stitch along that edge. We mainly want to prevent the fraying of that fabric. Next, we're going to grab our braided elastic and cut 2 12-inch strips. And what we're going to do is hemming those outside edges at about a 1/2 inch hem. And you'll want to place that braided elastic on the inside of that hem. And I recommend pinning it down so that way nothing is moving around and you don't accidentally sew over the elastic. And once it's all pinned down, you're going to want to sew as close as you can to that serged edge. You want to make sure you do not sew over that elastic strip. Now that the outside edges are hemmed, we're going to go ahead and grab that elastic and tie a knot.
Asleep and awake in the drowsy fantasy moment of every lonely dawn. Oh, come on.
Once the knot is nice and tight, you can go ahead and trim the ends because you're going to want to make that knot as small as possible. Once the ends are trimmed, you're going to want to slide that knot on the inside of that hem so that way you don't see the knot. You're going to want to do this for both sides and your mask is complete. The next step is adding in the PM2.5 filter. Take your filter and slide it into that lining pocket. And one final little touch is adding rubber end caps onto your elastic. This will allow you to adjust your face mask for a tighter fit. But if you don't have these, the other option is to make that elastic a little bit shorter. I still recommend starting at 12 inches and then trimming it down to your size. And that will complete your mask. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment. If you have any other ideas on these masks, let me know and I'll make a video for them. I am also going to be working on a video for alternatives to the PM2.5 filter, and definitely send me your ideas if you have any for those as well. But other than that, stay safe out there and we'll see you next time.
Beep.